So in 2022, Realme is doing things slightly different. As usual, they've just launched their fresh new Realme 9 Pro budget-friendly blower, but if you've got a bit more cash to spunk on your new smartphone, well, you can always opt for this bad boy here, the Realme 9 Pro Plus, in case that Pro wasn't quite pro enough already. This 6.4-inch super shiny slab is taking on the Redmi Note 11 Pro and the OnePlus Nord CE2s of the world with its budget-defying specs, including a super sharp AMOLED screen, Dimensity 920 Smart, an impressive 50 meg camera, and 60-watt fast charging. Sounds lovely and all, but the main question is, does the Realme 9 Pro Plus still not suck when you actually slap your SIM in the thing and use it as your full-time smartphone? Well, I've had my SIM in there for about a week now, and here's my in-depth review. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, my first impressions with the Pro Plus were strong, and 1 week on, I still really like the hand feel. Like the Nord CE2, this 6.4-inch blower sits comfortably in your palm, and yeah, one-handed use is still a bit bloody tricky, but you do at least have some easy UI help chucked in there. Of course, the real highlight of the Realme 9 Pro Plus's design is that arse end, which is incredibly sparkly and shiny. It kind of looks like Tinkerbell and the gang have been really going to town on it. Seriously, just point this thing at someone and they'll probably be dazzled into a stupor for a good hour or two. The only problem being that because of course it is a glossy rear end, it does pick up scuffy marks rather easily, so you have to give it a bit of a buffing occasionally to keep it all sparkly and shiny. This is the Sunrise Blue model, which can actually change colour over the course of a few seconds to a lovely ruby red whenever sunlight strikes it. So here in the UK, you'll maybe see that happen a couple times a year. Because I'm an old git, it actually kind of reminds me of those old 90s tie-dye t-shirts that used to change colour when they heated up. I really loved how when you played footy and got all sweaty, the pits turned a really nice dank blue. Wonderfully gross. And the good news is, the Realme 9 Pro Plus seems pretty hardy too, despite that placky back. No scratching to speak of so far, while the pre-installed screen protector keeps the front end tidy too. And it's great to see the latest Android 12 OS slapped on here, when some rivals like the Redmi Note 11 Pro have emerged with the previous generation OS still on board. And the good news is Realme is offering a couple of years of Android OS updates with the 9 Pro Plus, as well as the usual security updates. All of those great OS 12 features are packed in here, including the excellent privacy controls, plus matching up the UI colours with your chosen wallpaper. Realme's launcher allows you to tweak everything from the always-on display to the fingerprint animation, while also adding helpful features like a notifications light which strikes up both sides of the screen. It's a veritable buffet of personalization, and quite frankly I love getting my face stuck into it. And yeah, the settings menu here on Realme UI 3 can still be quite daunting if you're not used to it, but at least it packs in quite a lot of features that are worth having. Realme thankfully doesn't stuff its smartphones with as much crapware as rivals like Xiaomi, just a couple of bits like Booking.com which can be booted right the hell off, no worries. And after a full week of using the Realme 9 Pro Plus as my personal handset, I haven't noticed any dodgy behaviour in there, no apps acting up, no random crashes, no buggering about at all. Security wise, you've got a perfectly decent optical fingerprint sensor that works even if your hands are a bit sweaty, and face recognition if you need a fallback. Now it seems like most mid-rangers these days come packing an AMOLED screen, which is great to see. Literally, because the Realme 9 Pro Plus's 6.4-inch display is once again pleasing to the peepers. It's powerfully bright with sharp contrast, wide viewing angles, and vibrant colour reproduction that makes vivid photos and video really shine. Factor in the actually pretty decent stereo speakers along with a headphone jack and reliable Bluetooth support, and media fans should definitely be more than happy enough. And also, like many rivals, the Realme 9 Pro Plus's panel boasts a 90Hz refresh rate for super silky smooth finish. As for the MediaTek Dimensity 920 chipset which runs the show here, well, that adds 5G support across both of the available SIM slots, and it also means smooth everyday performance no matter what you're up to. Even if you're a gamer, you'll be able to play most titles no worries, although the most demanding fare such as Genshin Impact does struggle a bit even on the default low graphical settings. Stick to the standard stuff like Call of Duty Mobile, PubG, etc., and you'll enjoy a perfect frame rate with responsive touchscreen controls. And you can keep on playing as long as the battery lasts with some built-in vapor chamber cooling, which keeps the Realme 9 Pro Plus from getting toasty, even with endless "oh my god, some fricking kid just shot me in the back of the bloody head again" action. You got a 4,500 milliamp battery crammed into this thing, and that meant I could keep on going on the Realme 9 Pro Plus all day long until finally I collapsed in a heap from exhaustion. There was just one day where I came really close to killing this thing in a single 24-hour period, but then basically that involved about 4 or 5 hours of video streaming, about an hour of Skyping, lots of other camera play, just non-stop use pretty much, and that almost did for it, but even then it's still just about clung on to life until I was tucked up with Teddy. And you don't even need to worry about plugging this phone in overnight either, because you've got 60 watt super dart charge packed in there, so you can just top it up in the mornings, job done. So if you've stuck with me thus far, you'll know that the Realme 9 Pro Plus is a pretty solid all-round smartphone. But we haven't even touched on the best bit yet, and that is the camera tech that's slapped on the shiny, spangly, colour-changing arse. The primary camera sensor is a 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 with built-in optical image stabilization, and this really does capture impressive photos for this price point. It's a step up from many rivals. In strong light, you'll occasionally get a bit of saturation, but the Realme 9 Pro Plus can cope admirably with sharp contrast. These test shots serve up more detail than the competition, especially in the darker areas. Even indoors, the detail levels don't noticeably drop, while colour reproduction is still close to natural. In ambient light, moving subjects do occasionally look fuzzy. If they are in motion, that's no real surprise. Oh, and just a minor random aside, never ever get a chocolate orange beer, even if it's just a quid. It's kind of like an Oompa Loompa just threw up in a can. The Realme 9 Pro Plus's 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens also doesn't shock, struggling to produce as natural looking results as the primary sensor, but it's handy for fitting more into the frame. And yes, Realme, like Xiaomi and many others, feels obligated seemingly to slap a macro lens on the back end of its smartphones as well. So yeah, you've got one of those here too. Yippee hooray celebrations. You've also got a big old bag of bonus modes, including a night mode, which can brighten up your subject effectively, as long as they're completely still, of course. And there is a full-on pro mode on here as well, if you want to tinker with all of the settings and get a very precise kind of shot. For your home movies, you can record 4K video at 30 frames per second, and that's the setting that I stuck with. And even if colour reproduction isn't exactly entirely natural, you will get sharp visuals as well as clear audio from all directions. Images do get a little softer indoors and in the evenings, pretty typical from mid-range mobiles, but nothing too shocking. And even the stabilization isn't actually dreadful at that 4K resolution when you're bopping along and shooting simultaneously. And last up, if you're an Instagram fan, that 16 meg selfie shooter isn't anything special, but it'll do the job as long as, again, you aren't testing it with any particularly troublesome conditions. However, if you do want to shoot a bit of video using that front-facing camera, it does max out at full HD resolution, and you know, the quality is absolutely fine. Again, the audio pickup is alright, nothing particularly stunning on the visuals side of thing, but it's fine for a bit of basic vlogging. So there you have it, you lovely buggers. That in a nutshell is the Realme 9 Pro Plus. As you can see, it's a satisfying all-round budget-friendly smartphone. Of course, it's right up there as far as the budget-friendly phones go. It is a Pro Plus model after all, but if you're a slightly more demanding user who's still on too tight of a budget to really stretch up to the upper mid-ranges and the flagships, well, it'll do the job. That camera is definitely one of the highlights, being able to cope with pretty much anything that you chuck at it, within reason, of course. But if you are a gamer, however, I would say there are alternatives that can cope better with the more intensive titles, the likes of the Genshin Impacts, such as the Redmi Note 11 Pro. So that's what I think, but what do you guys reckon? At home, definitely be great to your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke, subscribe, and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. Stay tuned for lots more best budget phone roundups, and have yourselves a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.